continuing with the this economic survey in public finance. Okay, see, actually once I cover this chapter on fiscal development, like economic survey, the topic name is fiscal development only, then only your entire public finance will over. Okay, budget, see, public finance means that this conventional areas we have covered. It is covered in the 4 modules. Okay, then is budget, is because budget comes under, means the latest budget. Okay, the major initiatives, almost I have taken, few are left. And see, you have to remember that I'm in relation to public finance, what all I teach in prelims, it is important for your mains also, like in the case of GST. Okay, especially budget also, and economic survey, you can bring all those things. Okay, and I strongly believe at least you will get 3 questions from public finance in your coming prelims. So you have to make sure all the 3 are correct. So we have to, this is how that is our target is. Okay, if 3 or 4 questions comes, normally they don't ask so many of questions, but this year they will ask. You know the reason why. Okay, because public finance become the most important. Normally money and banking and external sector used to be the highest priority area, but this year it is public finance. So maybe the number of questions being asked in money and banking and public finance may be equal. Maybe if you are lucky, you will get 4 or 5. Our aim is that how many questions been asked from public finance, you should answer it. And once we cover this entire public finance, including economic survey, if an unknown question also is being asked, and a question which I have not discussed in the class, if it is being asked, then also you can answer it. You can make it correct. That is the advantage of, see, after covering everything, but you have to just identify this, whether this question is from public finance, and you should have the guts to attempt it. See, that's the reason why I am conducting that test. That put 3 surprise questions, because those 3 questions I have not discussed in the class, but using your common sense. Common sense means the knowledge which you have gained through these classes, nothing else I am not, and the strategy which I have discussed while solving UPSC prelims question. I just want to see that whether because that is very important, that answering the unknown question is the success of your prelims. The key for success for your prelims is depending upon how you answer unknown question also, not only known question. Okay, but see, for you known question will be easy, but for others, for them that is not a known area, because we are covering in such a comprehensive way. Okay, that's the difference. It doesn't mean that since it is known to you. How many classes we have taken on public finance? Is there anyone teaches so many classes on public? No one. 1 2-hour class public finance will be over. And that's the reason why. And since this year it was so important, I'm taking in such a comprehensive way. Even otherwise also I'll take, but current affairs I'll take more. Anyway, coming back. So in today's session, we will discuss the one aspect of the economic survey. That is, I told you, UPSC asks question from the trend in the government finance. Okay, so we will discuss the trend in government finance. That is, we will discuss the trend in government finance. It includes the various deficits, how the various revenue, that is receipt part, various expenditure part, debt part. These are the 4 areas. Okay, the different deficits, the different means the receipts. What is the trend in receipts, revenue, including non-tax revenue? Then trends in expenditure. Then we will go to the debt, the overall debt. Okay. First we will discuss about central government. Then we will discuss economic survey. Have discussed state government also. See, when I discuss state government, try to understand state government is comprehensive. Means they are not taking one particular state. They are taking all the 28 states. That is economic. That is the average they are taking. And then, so central government and state government. Then one more term is there. Economic survey have used what is called as general government. I have discussed it in the class. General government. What is general government? Central government and state government combined. So every economic survey, this will be the, it will update it. The theme will be the same. Only changes will, yearly updation will be there. And current affairs, if there are any, they will be showing it. Okay. So we'll start with central government finances. Okay. So many of the things we have discussed in our classes as well as in budget, but we have to know what economic survey is discussing. Because if a cut copy statement means there will be many cut copy statement question. Cut copy means they will take a statement from the original source, and same statement they will ask in your question paper as statement 1, statement 2, etc. So one of the source to cut copy question is economic survey. So if you have read it, it is easy for you. If you have gone through it. So this classes and material is like that only. But if you have not read it, it will be a confusion for you. You may not even attempt it. Even if you attempt, you may make wrong. Okay. So that we will. So we have. So it's even though you use it as a revision. And some area which I have not discussed in the conventional class, I'll stress it more. Okay, I'll explain it more. Which I have discussed in the conventional class, there is no need to repeat it again. Okay. So economic survey starts by this. Okay. Economic survey in this topic, it says that the fiscal deficit for the year 1920 is 4.6% of GDP. We know that. Okay, but see, you are supposed to know the fiscal deficit of, it's a fact of 3 years, 1920, 2021 and the projected 2021-22. It is, we know that 4.6, then 9.5, then 6.8. Okay, so that we have covered so much, then you are comfortable with it. Okay, but on June 27th, you should remember it. That is the key. Okay, so it is saying that, so economic survey is saying that, okay, in the year 1819, okay, we know what happened in 2020. See, these two areas we have discussed when I was taking budget. Yes or no? But economic survey is having data up till November 2020. Or some areas, sometimes it is December 2020. So, mostly it is giving more importance to 1920 and 2021 to an up. So, many things which is not there in the economic survey is covered when I covered in budget 2021. Okay. So, we have to see this trend you have to see. So, what the economic survey is, if economic survey is projecting or saying something explicitly, you are supposed to know. Okay. So, economic survey says that compared to 1890, so the 1920 fiscal deficit is 1.2 percentage points higher. So, it means that in 1890, fiscal deficit is 3.4%. See, red is fiscal deficit. Then see, in this figure, they are not showing revenue deficit. Instead of they are showing effective revenue deficit. Okay, so revenue deficit, effective revenue deficit, and primary deficit. And the data for 2021 is just, see, what is 2021 data? It is budget estimate only, because they don't have any data regarding revised estimate, because that will be only mentioned while presenting the budget after the economic survey. That's why economic survey will not have. That's the reason why I covered budget first. Okay, so forget about this trend. This we already discussed. This is a budget estimate only. I had given you the data of revised estimate, but I'll again show you just for a continuity. So in this class, I am taking some figures of budget also to show that what is the data of 2021. Okay, so 1819 it is 3.4. Okay, and so since economic survey is covering 1819 data also, or it is mentioning, others they are not discussing. This thing is not discussed in the economic survey. Just only figure is being given. Okay, but here these are the things which is discussed. 1819 3.4, 1920 it is 4.6. This much only economic survey discussed. But what does budget is have discussed? And for the coming financial year, it is projecting in the budget estimate. This you keep in mind. Okay. Then effective revenue deficit. So this is actually what the economic survey, we know what is effective revenue deficit. Revenue deficit minus, see, the grants given to states, but not all the grants, which created capital asset. That is effective revenue deficit. But what economic survey have what is effective revenue deficit according to which captures the fall in, this is actually, so this statement they will say that, okay, effective revenue deficit captures the shortfall in current receipts over current expenditure. They can give like that. So you should not get confused. What will they say? In one statement, they will say that fiscal deficit is something, effective revenue deficit is something, primary deficit is something. In that they will say that, so if this will be a cut copy statement. They will say that, so we know what is effective. See, revenue account is actually what is your current expenditure and current payment. Okay, so, but normally why this effective revenue deficit was introduced? To show the real revenue deficit. Because if any expenditure is creating capital assets, whether it is center or state, it is a capital expenditure only. So effective revenue deficit really shows the real deficit, real current deficit. Okay, so current word we are not using. Why? Means because it is used in the balance of payment. That's why we are using revenue account, in order to avoid the confusion. Okay, revenue account of the budget is similar to the current account of the balance of payment, but it's a different context. Okay, so just remember, if this statement comes, you have to note that it's a correct statement. What is it? Effective revenue deficit captures the shortfall in expenditure minus difference between expenditure and receipt. But what they have used? Shortfall in current receipts over current expenditure. And so it also increased by 1%. So regarding effective GDP, okay. So this is effective GDP, okay. Effective revenue deficit in 1819 is 1.4%. In 1920 is 2.4%. It's saying so 1% increase. So regarding 1920 economic survey says that the effective revenue deficit have increased by 1%. Only these points have been discussed. Just have an idea. Okay, it will be there in your material also, just note down, okay. But I don't think so they will ask you question like this, factually, it increased by 1%. But they will ask you they can ask you either a simple definition, what is effective revenue deficit, which I have already discussed in the conventional class, or it can be explained in this way also. Okay, so getting these information, how the government defines certain concepts, we'll be knowing it through budget data, budget document as well as economic survey only. Okay, this thing you keep in mind. And rest regarding the trend we already discussed. If they say that in the last 5 years that is steady increase or steady decrease, both are wrong statement. Okay, that we already discussed it. Okay, now moving on. Now we already know it. Okay, regarding, just note down. We know the trend. Okay, 4.6, 9.5, 6.8. I discussed in the budget class. Revenue deficit 3.3, 7.5, 5.1. Effective revenue deficit. Okay, now what happened? It moved from 2.4 to, in 2021, what was it? See, we know that from 1.4 it moved to 2.4. From 2.4 it jumped to 6.3. So just have an idea. It's just an updation. That's it. Regarding primary deficit, they are not discussing, but that time I discussed that. Okay, what is specialty about the year 2021 is all the 4 deficits is above 5%. That one point you need to note down. I discussed earlier. Now, this is actually a budget figure. So, we know everything, but just it is giving a data of the year from 14, 15, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19 and 19, 20 provisional actual, okay. 2021 data is budget estimate only. So that we have updated data is there. Now just see that, okay. I just want to show you this point, okay. What is this? GDP at market price. This GDP is nominal GDP or real GDP? Nominal. See, everywhere when we talk about GDP is real GDP, but in the case of budget and this, it is nominal GDP, okay. Okay, so just see, everything we are expressing in relation to percentage of GDP. Everything we are expressing is in relation to percentage of GDP, okay. We are not supposed to know the real figure. We should know about what is the percentage of GDP of that particular financial year, okay. So, see, our GDP have increased consistently. Means there is value wise. Okay, from 124 to 137 lakh crore, 153 lakh crore, 170 lakh crore, 189 lakh crore, but so then in 1922 203 lakh crore. But what happened in 2021? Minus. It is lesser than what happened in 2021 GDP. 2021 GDP is negative growth. So this one will be 2021 revised is lower than 1920 GDP at market price. Okay, that just keep in mind. Okay, that we already discussed. Okay, now see the term used are just instead of looking into the figure, I just want to know that whether you are aware of all these terms. You know what is revenue receipts? What is there in the revenue receipts? Tax revenue and non-tax revenue. So you are clear with the revenue. We are discussing the conventional class. Okay, that point. Now what is gross tax revenue? The entire tax the union collects. The entire tax the union collects. That is, it includes union excise duty, corporation tax or corporate income tax, then tax on income, customs duty, etc. Okay. So where that will be shared with the state. Okay. So from the gross tax revenue, what is net tax revenue? If you deduct transfer to the state, how much tax has been transferred to the states, you will get net tax revenue. Okay. Now why this is important is net tax revenue plus non-tax revenue is revenue receipts. This point you note down. Because when in our conventional class we studied what revenue receipts is tax revenue plus non-tax revenue, but it is not gross tax revenue. It is net tax revenue plus revenue receipt. Just for your clarification, you just add it. 9.04 lakh crore plus 1.9 lakh crore. It comes around 11.01 lakh crore. So that's not required. It's a fact. Okay, just so that point you need to note down. Now, what are the other terms used? Okay, then so you are familiar with these terms. Then non-debt capital receipts. Non-debt capital receipt. Okay, now economic survey is dividing the receipts into see we know that receipts is divided into revenue receipts and capital receipts. Okay, but economic survey is also dividing receipts into debt receipt and non-debt receipts. Debt receipt and non-debt receipt. So there are receipt in capital receipt also. In capital receipt there is certain non-debt capital receipt is there. The most common non-debt capital receipt is disinvestment. Okay, so we know that there is non-debt, so it's talking about non-debt capital receipts. See, other than this disinvestment, what is the non-debt capital receipt? Recovery of loans. Okay, so that everything, see, I'll discuss in detail, okay, what is there in the non-tax revenue. That's very important, okay. So that you need to update. Even though I discuss in the budget, economic survey I'll also discuss, okay. Now, so in order to get non-debt receipts, this also please note down, write down. This is what you've done. How you will get non-debt receipts? Add revenue receipts. Add revenue receipts, take it A, to non-debt capital receipts. Add A plus B, you will get non-debt receipts. Revenue receipts plus, so the entire revenue receipts is taken. Take the non-debt capital receipts. Add together, you will get non-debt receipts. Okay, that's regarding. So then, what is the other receipts left? The borrowings and other liabilities. That is our fiscal deficit. Then, total expenditure. Total expenditure is, as we know that it is divided into revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. So this again, we will discuss in detail regarding, see nearly, the economic survey says that nearly the percentage out of the total expenditure, 85 to 87% approximate of the total expenditure is revenue expenditure. Just 13 to 15% is capital expenditure. So productivity of the expenditure is very less because capital expenditure is more productive expenditure. This also we have discussed in the conventional area. Okay. So we are aware of what is a revenue expenditure, what is capital expenditure. Then coming to fiscal deficit, we know what is fiscal deficit, we have discussed in detail. It is nothing but the borrowings and other liabilities of that particular financial year. Then revenue deficit, it is the difference between revenue expenditure and revenue receipts. Primary deficit is fiscal deficit minus interest payment. Okay, so these are the things being mentioned in the economic survey. So the terms you are familiar with regarding the data and analysis we have discussed many times, including the budget. Okay, now moving on to just show you the updation. This figure is, I have introduced it to show the updation, because in the economic survey they are having only this thing, na? So what I just want you to know is, okay, you are supposed to know, again I am just repeating, what is the total expenditure. What is the total expenditure for this year? You are supposed to know the total expenditure of 2021. You should know, you are supposed to know the total expenditure, because that year was the fiscal stimulus year. Okay, so to get that, it is not there in the economic survey. Okay, so just note down the total receipts. Obviously total receipts and total expenditure will be the same. Okay, so the total expenditure for financial year 2021 is, it is coming around 34. See, in 2021, the total expenditure is coming around 34.51 lakh crore. Please note down. Okay, or 34.50, sorry, 34.50 approximately. So why there, and you need to note down is that, okay, compared to 1920, there is a huge jump in total expenditure from 26.86 to 34.5. Not only that, if you see one trend, okay, many of the receipts was, what is the budget estimate and the revised estimate is lower in terms of receipts. But except one exception is, we have said that in relation to union excise duty. So generally, if you take all these general, what is tax? If you look into tax revenue, see, after tax revenue they have written net to sender, that is net tax revenue. So revenue receipts is net tax revenue and non-tax revenue. It is mentioned there in the economic survey, it is mentioned there in the budget. What I am saying is, okay, what you have to focus on 2021 revised estimate is that, see, everything compared to budget estimate and revised estimate is lower. See, budget estimate revenue receipt was 20 lakh crore, but revised estimate it is 15 lakh. So everything is lower. But capital receipt is higher. You know that. Why capital receipt? Because of the borrowings only. Not because of the other receipts. Here is disinvestment, recovery of loan. So compared to everything it is lower. So there is a huge fall in disinvestment as well as in borrowing. So all these things we have discussed, but you connect it. But in terms of expenditure, you see, expenditure increased. Okay, so this only you will keep in mind. And when you see normally there used to be a great increase in the every component in the next year. But if you look into the 21-22 budget estimate, in the budget, there is no big difference. It's almost same. These two things this is what I want you to note down, nothing else. We have discussed, but since it's a fact, you will forget. I'm just saying that the revised estimate of 2021 and the budget estimate of 21-22, the total expenditure it's almost same. There is no big difference. That you need to note down. Okay, rest everything we have discussed earlier. Now, then the economic survey is talking about the growth rate. See, earlier I have shown you the actual figure, absolute value. Now they are discussing about the growth rate. So in this growth rate, now you have to just see in the economic survey they have not covered this 2020-21 data. Why? It's not there with them. Okay, so if you look into the data see the 5-year data, look into the 5-year data. already in 1920, see just note down the negative wherever this negative have happened. Not positive, that we are, see, already the gross tax revenue in 1920 itself, so gross tax revenue started falling. Gross tax revenue started falling from 90 before the lockdown. Now what is this they will ask you. What is the reason for the slowdown? But other than revenue, you have to tell that why revenue. Obviously slowdown is there. So slowdown results in lower revenue. But more than slowdown, corporate in the financial year 1920, corporate tax cut was there. That's the reason why in 2021, income tax went higher than corporate tax. Okay, so this point you keep in mind. Why? And that trend continued along with this lockdown effect in 2021 also. See, in 2021 figure, everything is almost negative, which I discussed. But 1920, what is the sign? The gross tax revenue, please note down. Then, in the case of, I'll discuss non-tax revenue, okay. What are the components of non-tax revenue, okay. So, there have been a low, see, from the year 1718 onwards, there is a huge, see, it's a huge fall in the non-tax revenue. So, what are the things which you know that what is there in the non-tax revenue? What is the major non-tax revenue you know? Okay, first is dividends and profits. Okay, then interest receipt. That's why this is very important, because economic survey is covering it, budget is also covered. I'll discuss in detail, okay. And one more thing which you need to, I'll discuss, okay, external grants is there. I'll come to it, okay. Since it's there in today's discussion, when I take that PPT, you note down and write it, very important, okay. What are the components of non-tax revenue? Because there are few more components which other than which the economic survey as well as budget have discussed. So they can ask you, they will give you some components. So you have to see that, okay. Conventional question they can ask, they will give you some components and they will ask you whether it is revenue expenditure or capital expenditure. Or they will give you some components, they will ask you whether it is, it's like he got confused. They will give you certain components including RBI transfer and they will ask you, or disinvestment, etc. and then they will ask you whether it is non-tax revenue. Okay, you will fall into it, okay. If you are, see, understand, non-tax revenue is there in revenue receipts only. Disinvestment is in capital receipts. So in nowhere it will not be there, okay. So I will come to it, okay. Then, so non-debt capital, see, this is another interesting thing you need to note down. This is very non-debt capital receipts. Non-debt capital receipts started falling from the year negative growth, okay. So negative growth means, what is the non-debt capital receipts in 1780? You have to understand common sense. So the non-debt capital receipts in 1819 is lower than what we collect in 1718. That is the meaning of negative growth. Yes or no? If it is negative growth, that year how much they collect is lower than the previous year. That's a common sense. And so 1819, 1920 and in 2021. What about 2021 non-debt capital receipts? Is it negative growth? Obviously. So 3 consecutive year, for 3 consecutive, this is write down, for 3 consecutive year, non-debt capital receipts is having negative growth rate. Which are those years? 1819, 1920 and 2021. So you are supposed to know what all constitute non-debt capital receipts. So I am expecting a question, they will ask the components of either non-tax revenue or non-debt capital receipts or revenue expenditure or capital expenditure, etc. Rest, not to worry, okay. Then comes, see, capital expenditure. Capital expenditure has fallen in the year 1718, this is a concern. So before, see, already the slowdown started. So sign of slowdown is, okay, in the 1718, the financial year 1718, capital expenditure is having negative growth. But Then, so this negative growth in the 17-18 had an effect on 18-19 also. Don't think that, okay, 18-19 6.9 positive is very high because it is on a lower base year. Okay, so this is a so earlier see tried to understand, see from where it started, okay. Capital expenditure was 28.6%, then it lowered, then it went to negative. So it has not reached to the previous level. Okay, that trend you keep in mind, okay. So these are the trend, okay, you are just supposed to know about the trend only. So because of these trend, they can ask you the question, components of these, okay.